Shallow went from being a single man.
He has one kid on the way. He is a baby father, and then he's also engaged.
Life comes at you very fast.
Very fast.
This is the Two African Girls Review podcast,
where we review black and brown film, TV, and more.
Welcome back to episode 6, the final episode where we review Country Queen. And today we have special guests.
Hi everyone, was here last time. OPRAH OYUGI, one of the writers on Country Queen. Glad to be back in this episode.
Hi everyone, my name is Wanjeri Gakuru. I'm also one of the 4 writers of Country Queen.
Okay, let's get into it because this is a long one. We start off at Joe Murage's home, right?
Yeah.
Then that's the reporter. And we find that he does know some Photoshop and he's editing pictures to cook the story. I think he's trying to get back into Vivian's good books.
Oh, you remembered.
But you can see that he's torn.
Also, do you think he took it upon himself to edit it because he knew he was cooking?
Of course, what are you going to give it to?
Because he can't give it to the editing team.
Yeah. Then we have Akisa and her mom back in Sri Lanka. They're going through things and it seems like they're prepping for moving. I think Esther has agreed to move, or are they cleaning out Mwalimu's stuff?
They were preparing to move.
Okay, so they're preparing to move. And then there's this picture that, is it Akisa who holds it up? I think it's Esther and Walimu like back in the day. And then we were laughing. It's like Black people around the world pose the same way during that time. I don't understand. There was no internet, but somehow.
It's an African template that downloads.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I feel like those trends, those styles are coming back. Remember this whole Vogue thing where they were posing behind bed sheets?
It's coming back.
I feel like they took a leaf from that style.
Some of these, like Beyonce's album poses, they kind of look like our grandfather's poses.
We're curious to know
who added the Marxism stuff.
So the thing about Prof as a character, he's very alternative thinking. I mean, I don't know if we discussed whether he actually has the training to be a prof or just, the way somebody gets a nickname because that's how they carry themselves. I can't quite remember what aspect of his backstory, but it works either way. Either that he's learned so much and therefore he's kind of disillusioned about how the world is working at the moment, or he's just like wise man who reads books and he's got a little bit loopy, but it's not that he's wrong. He's just like people just are not ready to receive the message. But anyway, so when you were discussing it, when I first wrote it, I wrote it straight, like Marxism. But then we're like, no, the audience for this conversation are children. So how do you make it in a way that they understand? And then how would they absorb the information? So I remember I was discussing this scene with Lydia. And you were like, okay, what could we do? What could we do? And then you were like, oh yeah, so imagine. So let's simplify it for the kids. Let it play out visually. So that's why he takes a brick and then he smashes the brick into the other thing. It's a very visual, very visceral thing. But he's really invested in the convention. He's gotten it. He understands it. It comes very naturally to him. And we learn later why. It's in his genes. Yeah, so that was an idea that we brought into the space. But also, Prof is this guy. He's pretty much out there, but he's speaking sense, just that people are not willing to listen. And also, he's very philosophical. If you think about like a professor, he's a guy who thinks a lot about things. Oh, he was a teacher. That's his background. Okay.
Yeah, that was and partly why even the way he reacted to Akisa, like Akisa classes at this time.
Yeah. We move on to the scene where Juma is talking to some of the family members, a family member of a family that is leaving.
Yeah.
And he's paying them and then he's promising to pay them the rest of the money later. I wonder how he's going to do that. He kept on saying that the money I'm giving you is going to help you experience the good life in the city.
But you can see he's lying.
Obviously, he's lying. Even the people, I feel like the people can sense that he's lying. Also, Tony is watching. Even Tony is uncomfortable because he kind of knows what is actually going on.
Yeah.
The paper arrives in Sri Lanka and we see Chalo and Tony having a conversation. And Chalo is so upset and he goes to confront the kid. I think he sees the story where they're like he's hitting the kids, which is I found that a bit odd because usually like adults hitting kids in Uganda, I will speak for Uganda, there's like no problem. I found it like interesting that, but actually, when they want to cook a story for like international eyes,
Like nyege nyege.
yeah, there's a way they start to go human rights.
I'm about to do a follow up to the previous story. So there's a particular context within which him beating children goes against the perception of, okay, what's really going on at this mine? Who are the bad people? So that's why he's feeling some type of way about being depicted in this particular way. And that's
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that
I
is.
now get it. Yeah, he does the videos, right? Where
yes,
he's like rallying support and advocating for the people.
And for the children to not be exploited. So it doesn't make sense for him to be on the front page as the
yes,
one hitting the kid.
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, I don't know. You said that in Uganda there's kind of like not a stigma around it. Here there is, because a lot of children are being beaten in school to the point where they are dying. It's a very visceral reaction to, okay, why is this? There's evidence of a person beating a child. Usually, even when we see it in the news, it's the child, like the face is blurred out. They're showing the markings on their body. So violence against children is something taken very seriously here. Yeah.
In Kenya, kids are beaten more in private schools than in public schools. And it's because,
Wow.
in public schools, there's actually, like, the law will take its course. Like, as a teacher, you will be arrested. I think even nursery school kids and primary school kids are encouraged to run when your teacher starts hitting you. Of course, that doesn't stop the beating from happening. It definitely happens, but you hear more about it in private schools.
That's actually very interesting to learn. I know it's outlawed in Uganda, but nobody.
Doesn't
I
it?
mean, in Uganda, we all know in Kenya they do not beat.
Yeah,
So I don't know
actually.
what's happening in Uganda then. Hell. The term fake news has really moved.
Yeah. It's the phrase of the times.
The part where Chalo is really upset and then he confronts Josiah, who is at Professor's place. Professor calls him out.
Yeah.
He's like shame on you.
Do they know it's Photoshop?
No, I don't think Prof was chastising him for the story. It
Yeah.
was more for
How he
how
was.
he reacted and handled Josiah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, also that part, it was a bit odd because I was thinking, why would he confront Josiah? He's helpless in this situation, right?
Yeah, but it was more like, tell the truth. This didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe he was hoping that he could use like a witness statement from him
Yeah.
to clear his
Then it
name.
goes back to that thing you were saying where that's how people talk to children. They kind of manhandle them because they are bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of shows, well, I don't want to give it away, but it speaks to some aspect of Charlo's personality. But we will get it
Ah,
in season 2.
I thought so. He's very quick to anger.
Mm-hmm. Is he?
Yes.
Okay.
He doesn't have like let's say like Max, there's a
Very calm.
method to his violence
Yeah.
or to his aggression.
Mm.
Charles is a bit unhinged.
He's very passionate. He's a very passionate guy.
Yes.
But also that's the thing, he's very human. And so that him lashing out in that way makes complete sense for the person that we've built him internally. But it does feel like an overreaction. I agree.
So we're at the part where Grace and Anna are preparing for the engagement party. At first, we were confused because we were wondering, is it a baby? But it can't be a baby shower because she's not showing yet. Also,
No.
she will never show.
Are we sure? I don't know. I'm very confused. There's a confidence in which she speaks about this, or maybe she's gonna make it happen then.
This is the right time to ask that question.
Yes, I think it is.
All right.
Do you know? But before we go to that part, there's something that Grace says.
Mm.
Grace says, "You're doing all this for someone that does not oil their lips." I don't know if I heard correctly. Was it that?
I don't well, but this is the thing. Like Grace and Charlo are good friends. And so I would not be surprised if she was roasting him. So
Yeah, she likes to roast him for
Yeah,
sure.
but it makes so much sense because in the previous episode, there was a part where she said, get a fresh shirt.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's
And
like be a little bit more romantic. Yeah, she likes to roast him
yeah.
for sure.
so she knows he doesn't oil his lips then.
She keeps laughing at him that
Yeah.
he has shamba boy tendencies.
Mhm.
Maybe it can also be like, a difference in how they approach life. Because
Mm,
Grace is like, I need to go to the city, get me a
mm,
good life. There was a part where she carried in the crates by herself and she was looking at the mirror like, damn, look at my skin. Like, I'm struggling.
Mm.
yeah.
But I also feel like Charlot's demeanor, yeah, that's the word,
Mm,
is because he has gone to the city, he has seen it
yeah.
all, and he's realized, yeah, it's not it, and he has returned. He doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. It's not
Mm,
like he's trying to go to the city like
Okay.
everybody else around.
yeah.
Okay. Did
Mm,
Anna tell? Because there's a part where she comes to Juma's bar, and at
yeah.
Juma's bar there are people like the parties, they're
Mm-hmm.
in prep mode,
Mm-hmm.
and Grace gives her a gift like tiny little baby socks,
Yeah.
and then we ask, how does Grace know?
No.
Well, it's a
About
small village. I think you okay. First of all, remember this is the best friend, and let's even like step outside of this storyline. If your boyfriend has a very good friend, that person becomes your friend because you want to figure out what's really going on between them. But also,
not
Grace is a great character as a person. Like the character we've created, she's very friendly. She's a very real chick, and she builds her own friendship with Anna. So she's there
Okay.
genuinely as the friend of both parties, right? And so that's why she's very honest. Like, this guy, can he just oil his lips? But here is a gift because she knows what's going on far much more than probably
okay.
other people in the community at this moment.
That's a risky move, though. Anna telling, you know what? It would be more likely for
Charlotte.
Charlotte to tell Grace than Anna. Because I don't know why you put yourself under that kind of. It's a
Yeah.
Pressure,
lie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Part of like
Mm.
her buying this was also like, I'm hoping you guys get, pregnant because you're getting married.
I think she knew because Anna, the way Anna responds, she doesn't say like, "Oh, that's not
Oh,
true," or "Who told
yeah.
you?"
There's a part she pauses, and you can see that she's starting to realize her lie is really getting a bit deep.
It's growing and
She's
growing.
gonna have to make that baby happen now.
In season 2. So we're at the scene where Max is back at Mama Akinyi's house. Did you see the kids climbing on the
On the
car?
car, yeah, that was very. I like it. It's a
It's so
good scene.
normal, isn't it? That's what kids do.
Yeah, we used to do that, and then the car has an alarm. Oh my god! And then we have to run. You can actually see the depth of the relationship they have. She agrees to borrow him money.
To lend him money.
Whatever.
Let me tell you. Well, let's say round off to the nearest English. We got it.
I'm curious, do you guys have chamas? So for us, I want to say table banking, but someone told me it's different. But ideally,
It's more like the merry-go-round.
yes, the merry-go-round. So it's called chama. Mainly women are the ones who are in chamas, and usually it's like
Oh.
a group of friends where we save through each other. So let's say this month, if the three of us are in one chama, the four of us are in one chama. So we'll say this month, we give all our 500 bobs to Soki, and then the next week we give all our 500 bobs to Bira, then the next week to Anjeri, the next week to me. So in a way everybody has saved, but through each other, like, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. And then it extends to people actually investing, like, so chamas, there are chamas where you actually invest. I don't know if you guys have it. You might have it, but in a different name. But I think it's popular in, I think, in African countries, because I've seen it quite a bit on South African
Mhm.
TV. What do
Mm.
they call it?
Sacco,
Yeah,
like as
Sako.
as
Uh,
A
as
saving
community savings
scheme.
scheme.
yeah,
So for us, the
a
SACCOs
bit
are
more formal.
actually formal and registered.
They are there. I just don't know how, because each region has a different name for it. But I
Mm,
remember when we were younger, my mom was in one, and they would
mhm,
actually do that. Like 1 month, all the savings would go to one person, and then maybe
mhm,
that person, if that person wants to buy, let's say, things like furniture, so
mhm,
she would buy that. Then the next month, the savings would go to another person, and if they want to, maybe, I don't know, save for like a maternity leave, like it was always there. I remember, yeah, and it
that's
is
so
still there
nice.
even up to now.
I like that community organizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think it was a bit heartbreaking to see her give that money to Max, because I was like, 2 million of a child. Like, we will. I don't even know what we would do if we had raised 2 million and you took it. and you gave it out and it didn't come back.
Will he return it?
I don't
Because
know. I'm so
the
skeptical.
circumstances around his investment are very shady. First of all, it's land involved. Like anything can go wrong. I don't know.
The only thing giving me hope, right, is that he really wants to make a name for himself.
Mm,
Like he wants to build an identity outside of Vivienne.
mhm.
So that's the only thing I'm holding on to. For that to happen, he'll have to maintain these relationships. People like Mama King, he can't mess that up.
Yeah.
Mm,
There's very few people Max really has in his life.
Mama Akinyi and Akisa.
Pretty much.
All women, yeah?
Yeah, very interesting.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
Yes.
actually, he doesn't have guy
No,
friends
there's
now that
not.
we think about it.
I love how invested you guys are.
I know, right? Like you guys have figured out things that I think it's only been in the show in subtext, and you guys have actually
Yes,
you've thought through them,
absolutely.
like this Charlo thing and Charlo going to Nairobi, and I'm like, hey, you guys have watched this show.
No, but even this is the wonderful thing that it proves that the best way to make cinema of any kind is to leave space for the audience to fill in the blanks. It's not about
Aye.
spoon feeding people. It's hinting at things. It's even like the question you were asking about Grace. It's so spot on. It's those things that are happening outside the scene that happen before the scene and they enter into the scene, and you understand that is the context. That is probably what happened that they're having this conversation. So it's very rewarding that you guys are connecting all the dots in the way that you are.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
For sure. We have the golf club scene with Vivienne and Governor Muoka. He has now put in conditions. He wants a cut.
Right.
50% before he does anything for Vivienne.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what was the previous agreement? So it seems like 50 is a bit much.
Yeah, it is a lot. It means he co-owns whatever is going to be mined, and I don't think she wants that.
Yes.
There's a part where Mocha,
Mhm.
he starts paying Vivienne no mind. Like he ignores
I
her.
think in that moment, Muoka realizes Vivienne has competition. And you also realize this is a young boy that he can actually control. So I feel like in that moment, Vivian realizes what Muoka realizes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then the part where he says, I'm gonna link Kingsley up with my daughter, Ivy. That's a bad combo.
No, but I
Yes.
don't think he meant it in that way. He meant it like a political affiliation, maybe.
No.
But for me, the way I understood it is, I'm gonna connect her with him with my daughter, and
To
then
do what?
so they become friends, and then he uses that to kind of like control Kingsley once Kingsley takes over the
Because he
company.
knows his daughter is a mess.
But you know what?
So it's gonna put the boy in a
I
mess. I
think
think people know he
I
has
think we're
drug use
both saying the
issues.
same thing because the way I'm saying it, he would do that, then eventually take over the company.
Then we have Akisa.
Right. So Akisa finds the letter, which is the will that the father writes all the way from the beginning. I was always very curious, like, what did he write in his letter? What did he write? The messed up thing is, he could not admit that he was wrong and he had to write it in his will. That was really sad.
You know what we just talked about? I think it's harder for like the older generation to speak like
Mm.
directly.
Yeah.
And given that he's a teacher,
Yeah.
Yes, to teach. No, if
You
it's
know,
a change,
the way teachers are,
yeah.
there's like this, especially teachers in the old time, the age of like Mwalimu, there's like a respect that was accorded to them. Like they were never really wrong. It's hard for them to admit that they did something wrong. When Akisa comes back at the beginning, I don't know, episode 1, Akisa holds him before he falls. He doesn't even say he's wrong. He says, I did what I thought was right. He never says, I was wrong. Even in the letter, he does not.
No, he
This
doesn't.
man waited until he was dead.
Even when he was dead, he still did not admit. That's when Akisa realized that the child was actually alive.
And that was
That was so heartbreaking.
I was
And
so
also the mom
pissed.
did not know.
That is so weird though. But you know how African men be moving mad. I am the head of the family. So he probably felt I don't really have to consult Esther.
Because that means he kept this whole secret to himself all these
That's why I
years.
think he has heart disease. You know what? We actually don't know what killed him.
Heart disease. He was sick.
Yeah, he was
And
sick.
Anna said, I didn't think it was gonna take you this soon.
So he had a disease that was progressing slowly towards death.
Yeah. But yeah, that part was really sad, like realizing even the mom, because I think she was going to attack the mom, not attack, confront the mom. Like, how did you know all of this and not tell me?
Well, I was going to speak to the demeanor of the parents and how even Esther has been towards Akisa in the time since. There's a thing about that particular generation of people where you are right, not very direct in their communication. And they didn't really see their children as peers when they became adults. To them, in their mind, they're always their children. And they made decisions from that point of view. And so your reading of the way he handles things is very, very correct. There's a distance there. There's a way in which he's not, he can't even admit to making a mistake. So we are also kind of making commentary on that generation of people and that aspect of African parenting. Yeah. The difficulty in navigating the truth with their children and the mistakes of the past.
But yeah, that generation also really keep a lot. They don't say much. And I also want to say there could be an element of colonialism because I don't know.
Mm.
I feel like there's also a group of our ancestors who, their culture was beaten out of them, their culture was taught out of them. There's so many things that happened that it's almost as if what happened in the past is not worth remembering or worth, which kind of sucks.
That's interesting. That's another way to look at it for sure.
There's an aspect of being allowed to speak or ask questions. It ties into two conversations we had. Kids being beaten
Mm.
less than before. It's because
Mhm.
remember we were always beaten to shut up or beaten because you've questioned
Yeah.
me or you defied me. Like it was never. I mean, there was of course beating of correction, but there was always this
Yeah.
need to respect authority.
So then we have, this is after, Akisa reads the letter, right?
Mhm.
She then goes to meet Chalo,
Mm-hmm.
and then he learns he has a son.
He did not know that he had a child. Shallow went from being a single man to having two kids on the way.
Not even on the way. He has one kid on the way. He is a baby father, and then he's also engaged at the same time.
Do you know that saying, life comes at you very fast?
Very fast. He was telling her, you're not going to come here and disrupt my life. And I was like, that's a bit unfair. She also didn't know. Then when I looked at it like, oh my God, all these things are just coming at him. He probably is like, what the hell?
All these things are coming at him once Akisa has shown up. It's that ex who comes in and now fucks everything up. Like,
Yeah. I also think they're unresolved feelings.
Because I
Yeah.
think by the time she disappeared, because to Charlo, she actually really disappeared. That means he doesn't know why she left. Like, he has no idea, and he probably still had feelings.
Yeah. Another thing is, do you see how they protected him and didn't tell him?
Mm.
You know how they
Mhm.
protect boys
Mm.
and then they're like, you're the one who's tempting the boys.
Mm.
I don't know. Because then that's the part where it kind of pissed me off. Like, why is he getting mad at her?
Mm.
Her life has been derailed. Like, do you see the privilege you're coming from?
But do you think he saw it?
I think he understood that later on.
I think in all fairness, if you also think about all the conversations they've ever had are the ones that you've seen on screen. They don't have a relationship outside of the moments that they meet. In fact, at some point she didn't have his number, And so he has an assumption that she knows all this stuff. She has an assumption that he knows all this stuff or made particular choices. And so it's a lot for him to take. And I think our desire there was to show some kind of empathy for the weight of the news of a child in a man's life. It's
Two
pretty
children.
back to back news. There should be space to process a piece of news like that is so life changing. Carlo is a passionate guy. And for me, I thought that was a humanizing way of it's what you do after you receive the news. You can receive the news however you receive it. But what do you do after the fact that's what reveals your character, I think.
We have Titus and Musa singing while drunk. Do you know this part is so funny? But do you know what?
What?
Do you know how strong religion and colonization is?
Yeah.
Wasn't it you who was walking around yesterday night singing hymns for I don't know what?
Back to back, I was just singing random songs, but they were all hymns. And then I kept on questioning myself, what is happening?
The things that you just hum and in passing without putting conscious effort, it's hymns.
That is so true.
Mm.
That means what comes to mind for them to sing while they're drunk
It's
is
Christian
is
songs.
hymns. Anyway, so Zippy comes around, and I don't know what the hell. Titus is grabbing Zippy. This kind of behavior is very common. The entitlement people have to women's bodies.
Titus is always with Musa. At least we know Musa has a family.
Yes, we do.
What's
Kanini, Zippy.
what's with Titus? What's his deal? Like, where does he live? Because even they're at Musa's house. Even remember when they stole the body? They
Yes.
hid it at Musa's house.
But you notice like the dynamics that they have between them. Musa follows Titus. I don't see what makes Musa follow Titus. I mean, okay, Musa is he has alcohol issues. But I don't see what Titus has. How is he able to command Musa's? That's why I feel he used to clash with Mwalimu, because he wants to be
The leader.
of their family.
Ah.
Do you see?
Makes sense.
I think Mwalimu is a
Because
bit
he's the one who
older.
even confronts
Yeah.
Mwalimu.
Do you think it's also like an inferiority complex of sorts? Like Mwalimu has a lot going for him. He was a teacher, we know that. He has a home, has a wife. I've not seen Titus's wife either.
Oh, home. Like, where does he even live?
Wearing his one dashiki day and night. And like they're lamenting about the 10 million that they've now lost because Esther doesn't want to move out. Maybe he has like a dilemma like Tony, Max, and Titus. They're trying to make a name for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Titus is doing that. I'm even seeing like Musa is kind of chill about it. He's just following Titus.
Mm-hmm. Remember when he said, "We may have lost the war, but we've not lost the battle."
Break time.
Why is Max's name still Sibala?
Yo, this is a hard question.
And all shall be answered in season 3.
Wait, oh,
There's a reason.
You
that
know,
doesn't make sense.
it can make sense. I'm starting to see it now.
What?
You know, when you make it in life, you link up all your relatives. Max might be a relative of Gore.
Oh,
The poor one.
Yo.
this theory.
He called his relative
Yeah, because
to come and be his driver.
if I became big in life, I need people I trust around me, right? I'm gonna get my relative. You know, nepotism at its best.
But they usually say, don't do business with family.
That's why the Chinese and the Indians are better. Not involving your family.
Okay, that
In
makes
fact,
sense.
marry their wives too.
So
That's
you-
what Max did.
Wait, what? Sibala is also his last name, then.
He'd be related to Kingsley, surely, yeah. And so if he's related to Kingsley,
He would protect Kingsley.
oh my goodness, you know, I've lost people in my lineup. We have Titus, we have Max, we have Tony, and then we have Kingsley. They're all trying to make names for themselves. Because the next scene we see Kingsley, he's looking at the picture of Sibala the lady. I think it was intentional, like how he's, you know, trying to fix up his necktie and coat he's wearing. It's like he wants to be him.
Do you think, knowing what we know, so remember when they went for the dinner and he kept on saying, I know what you did, you and Max. I was not intoxicated then, and even now I'm not intoxicated, implying that he actually saw them kill.
Possibly, but then what Vivian and Max used,
Because they used that, they put him in rehab.
yeah, they use his drug use issues to then discredit him. Who's going to believe him?
So do you think he wants to be like his father? Kind of like avenging his father because...
Yeah, there's also like an element of avenging his father's death.
You know what? I don't know how to categorize Kingsley. When you see his story, you're like, oh man, this is sad. On one end, he looks like this helpless little boy whose only weakness is being used against him by Vivian and Max. On the other hand, he wants to be like his father, and everybody knows the father was a monster. So I really don't know. Like, it's
Yeah.
hard. I want to support him, but I also, let's say, his plan goes through and he takes over his father's company. He's gonna be cruel to everyone
Yeah, I don't think he will be any different
from his father.
of Vivian. I also think that, you know, there's a part, I think they wrote him well, because there's parts where I'm like, Bambi Kingsley. Because he was really trying on his sobriety journey. They gave him some wine. He's like, yeah, no, I don't drink no more. He tried. I also saw he tried. I was like, Vivian, that's a bit wicked. Why would you do that? Kingsley, I get your struggle. Not that I know anything about drugs, but
First time you've heard the word. This thing about his relationship with Vivian. Now he perceives her as an outsider. And one of the most interesting questions I've gotten about the characters from Kingsley, well, the actor playing Kingsley, he asked me, who hated who first? Did I hate her because she's my stepmother? Or did she hate me being the son of her abusive husband? And that's kind of like the tension that he's kind of carrying within himself. He feels emasculated, he feels set aside. And this is somebody who's grown up in privilege. Now that connects kind of to the earlier point about drugs and how, when you're given everything, you're given access to everything. And also possibly no supervision, really, no guidance per se. And so it's the context in which he lived in. Probably the schools he went to, drugs were freely available. So sometimes these things are like almost like a victim of his circumstances. But other things are definitely things he learned from observing his father. It's very interesting that he comes across as somebody who you kind of want to pity, but you kind of are conflicted, which is what we were desiring with the character. So I'm very happy that that's how he's coming across, that he's not just like one-dimensional. He's got sides to himself that can evoke empathy and anger. Yeah.
The party at Juma's bar.
Charlo does not show.
Yep.
Of course, Anna is very, very upset. This is like a repeat thing.
Because even later on, when she confronts him, she says, this is the second event you have missed because you're with Akisa, right?
He comes to explain and he's fumbling. The moment he says Akisa, she's like, oh God, miss me.
But after Wanjeri explained his state of mind when he gets the news, it makes sense why he's fumbling. Because how would you tell someone that kind of news?
Even I can't understand that. The worst thing though, he leaves Anna's place on his bike, goes straight to Akisa's place. Do you know how bad that looks?
Well, she said leave. I mean...
He should have gone home, meditate upon his life. Zippy's like, I saw his motorbike heading that way. When he comes back to Akisa's on his bike, it's late in the evening. I feel like he was able to process things better after seeing how difficult it was for him to explain to Anna the situation.
You think he now understands the situation Akisa is in?
Exactly, because Akisa was trying to do the same to him and he dismissed her, just like Anna did to him.
Yeah.
It mellowed him out, and then he came and said, you know what, let's look
a solution
for the boy.
But the saddest part is the child is right there. I remember we discussed it a few episodes back.
Yeah.
Where we were saying, when you don't know, it's even hard to move on. It's hard to settle because your mind is always wondering what if.
Which is what I think happened with Charlo. I think that's why he has very many unresolved feelings
because
about Akisa.
Okay.
Because he just never knew what happened.
That is so
I feel like Akisa was able to move on with her life because they told her, the kid died. I think if she knew he was somewhere there,
she would have returned to look for him.
Yeah. And I think Charlo is able to move on with his life on one side because he doesn't know about the kid. Yep. But it's the what if of Akisa that kept tripping him. We go to Vivian and she calls on the people from the facility at the rehab and they come pick him up. I really felt
so
for
sad.
Kingsley in that moment.
Yeah. And then I was thinking to myself, he must have lived long enough with Viv to kind of know how she operates. Yeah. Maybe he needs a group, an army to help him because obviously he's not going to do it on his own. It's going to be very difficult.
Actually, Kingsley and her, they have no one. Like, at least Viv has Max. The part where he's like, I don't know, is it psychosis? Where he's like, I'm hearing voices. My dad is calling to me.
From the water? From the lake?
So sad,
That was so sad,
Kudos to the actor. He did a really good job.
Yes. Sometimes he's like a child.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're like, oh, this is a wicked man. Like, this is a baby. He needs a mommy and a daddy.
And then other times you're like, I can see gore in this child.
Yeah. Then we have Charlo and Akisa. They drive over to Aunt Salome's in the morning.
And then remember the part where Aunt Salome says, I did what I had to do. We were all following orders of your father. That means she also would not do anything about it.
Yeah, Mwalimu has a very strong arm then.
Damn.
Maybe but that's kind of like the way in, I don't know, African households.
Yeah,
the man says stuff You
and
all
that's
do it.
it. Yeah.
Another thing, on their drive over to Aunt Salome's,
Mm-hmm.
some trucks pass them by.
Of people moving.
Exactly. And we see the debate about people being sellouts versus people living for greener pastures.
I read an article today. At the end of it, it's always money. It always comes down to resources. If we extrapolate it even globally, the reason people move to the West, a lot of times it's not really because they hate home, but because at home you can't earn enough to afford the things you want to have in life.
That is so true.
Shallow is more on the side of people they're giving up too quick.
Mm.
And Akisa is more on what do you expect? Like they're looking for a better life.
Remember earlier when I said that he went to Nairobi? Charlo's outlook on life is, I've seen it all. It's really not that. And then he returned. And then I feel like because Akisa has actually found success in Nairobi, and also she has like all these negative memories from being at home, she's of the other mindset.
I don't know. I feel like this will become like an issue later
Between
on.
them, if they ever
But
become a couple, you think?
yes.
For Akisa, she's got very negative association with home. And even with Chalo, I mean, as much as he's trying to make a home for himself in the village, it's not very welcoming to him because of the fracture within his own family. And this fracture existed even before this land stuff happened. He's obviously not his father's favorite son. He's basically very much ostracized. And I think what I like most about that situation is that both of them, or rather the way Chalo has carried himself, has always been very oppositional to the idea of Ikorok. But sometimes the idea of like one man's food is another man's poison. And there's nobody who's been able to counter that perspective that Chalo has held. And I think Akisa can present that argument very solidly. And I think that's very important. Understanding that people just want to make it. And sometimes home can be a difficult thing. The city could be a difficult place, but at least have the choice. And I think he exercised his choice many years ago and let other people make that choice as well.
Yes.
We really wanted the villagers to have agency. Whatever choice they were making, it made sense to them.
And I mean, you can't even blame them because with Ikorok taking over, who wants to live next to a big ass pit? Like,
You're right. You know what? It gives like a good balance. Chalo is more of the idealist. Akisa is more of a realist.
Auntie Salome directs them to go to the children's home. They reach there, and it's so interesting to see the owner of the children's home parading the children. She's making them count, and then she's telling them, "Oh, this one is good looking."
The way she was opening, like
Like
showing
the
the gums.
teeth,
Oh my
the
god, that
gum.
gave very much indentured servitude slavery
Yes,
vibes.
and it
when
was
like
so
when the
heartbreaking.
when the slaves are being inspected and stuff.
And she
Yeah.
was mentioning what they can do. This one works hard.
So that means people come there to get children for labor, really.
They don't have family. You literally have a great person to exploit. Nobody's gonna come looking for them.
There's also the aspect of this is an overcrowded orphanage, and it's almost like you have to sell these kids. You want them to go. You want anybody who's coming to live with a kid.
There was a part where the camera was inside and Akisa was on the outside, and you could see the children looking at her from the inside.
You know what? It kind of gave also like primary school vibes.
Yeah.
It's so messed up. Your parents pay fees for you to go to school, but you bring books, you bring like broom. I don't know if this happens in Kenya, but in Uganda, you bring a broom, you bring tissue paper, you bring stuff for the school to
If
use.
they would even make you bring pots and pans.
Yeah, some in the villages, like the rural schools, they
Mhm.
make you bring food too. And then after that, after school, it's like you're also cleaning. So like, wait, why are you paying fees? It's a mess. Madame Salome said she met this orphanage mama at church. I mean, growing up, I know that adopting, like formal adopting, is not really a thing where we come from, right? But what happens is the community chips in, the auntie takes the child, the uncle takes the child, I don't know, the grandma, somebody. But for these kids to end up at an orphanage, that means there's a family that did not want any connection to them, which gives us Akisa's case. And that's how you see the church in it. Purity politics. Nobody wants to know that somebody got pregnant out of wedlock.
Yep.
Just highlighting something that's happened in Kenya. I think I figured this out when I was taking someone around orphanages. We were just, they wanted to come and set up a school that's progressive but also for orphans. And something really interesting we found out in Kenya is that I think for the longest time, no new orphanages have been acknowledged by the government. Before you could register an orphanage, right now, you cannot register an orphanage. Like from what the orphanage, the lady who ran the orphanage was telling us, is that by law they're trying to get rid of orphanages and they're really trying to push for kids to be adopted within their families, which to some extent is just heartbreaking because you find that there are many of those kids who are there because their families were hostile to them. His is different because he got the hostility from the orphanage. He ran away from that.
Mm-hmm.
I think she said something about him being a demon child.
Jeez.
Like very disobedient. But I also feel like when she said that, she found herself cornered because they're going to
Yeah.
ask her, where's the child? So she had to create an excuse.
Mm.
Oprah said some children run away from home because home is being abusive too, and they end up in orphanages.
Even abuse, though, we have to be asking ourselves what number of kids are there because of abuse? Do African households recognize abuse?
Imagine if Charlo, the way his father is so abusive, imagine if he was like a young teenager or a prepubescent boy. That would be very damaging for him.
Yeah. I wonder what his life was, you know?
Do you think that's one of the reasons why he went to Nairobi then?
I wonder.
Because Juma moved mad, honestly.
Can't be his mom died in childbirth so that dad associates. No, because Tony is younger, is he not? Why does he hate his son so much?
This happens in so many families where there's literally, one person who does not get along with a parent. And it might be because of politics, it might be whatever it is, but there's always a case of, in every other family you just hear, this child never speaks to us.
Family dynamics are very strange, and as Oprah has shared, people have major falling out with their parents for different reasons, and sometimes it could just simply be disappointment. Where somebody once said a long time ago on Twitter, like, what if you have a child and you don't vibe? And maybe it's a thing where you don't get along because you cannot control your child anymore, you know?
Ah.
Tony is submissive. He goes along with what his father wants. For Juma, that's the ideal son, the boy who listens to him and does what he wants. But those are things we'll explore for sure. Should we get the chance to continue with the story, those are threads that we definitely want to pull on. We really want to have that kind of cross-generational conversation because we had a bigger writer's room and then it shrunk over time. But all through, it's been, I think the average age has been maybe mid-30s. And so we have a very specific experience of the world. And there are a lot of wounds, lived experiences, and things we want to spotlight. And one of those things are the dynamics between certain generations.
Yeah.
We can see that. We have Vivienne, and Max keeps losing, really. He's still begging her to take him a bit more seriously.
That is true. He keeps doing the things for her, but this one thing that he is asking from her, she never delivers. Remember in the beginning when we said, what were they involved in? Why is Max so loyal to
And
Vivian?
now we know.
Yeah, we do
They
know.
killed the man.
So I think he can't really leave her because
I wanted to hear where you're going to go with that.
she's not living up to her end of the bargain
She knows he's not going to do anything.
about it.
I mean, also remember there's a deliberate power imbalance
Yeah.
in the way, Vivian handles him. Her respect for him kind of like swings from one side to the other. But it's also grounded on the fact that two things, in my opinion. One is the fact that he was her driver. That's how he kind of came into her life. So he was someone who was different from her husband. Whatever circumstances brought the end of her marriage, she doesn't want to go back there anymore. So that also, I feel like, kind of motivates her encounters with him, especially in the areas that matter to her, which is business. I think that's what makes it so interesting between the two of them, like that tension. And they play so well with each other. The actors, Blessing and Nini,
For
they're
sure.
just so delicious. It's a very love-hate. In fact, hate is even a strong word. It's like love, despise. I feel like that's their energy. And it it's a very toxic relationship, but
Very.
is it Max who said we're chained to each other forever? It's like my biggest love and my biggest hate at the same time.
I wonder
Mm.
what it will take for Max to break.
In what sense?
Snap.
Max wants her to see him outside of their normal dynamics. I wonder when Max will snap. Like
Season
when
7.
like there's something that she says. If you were a powerful man, I'd allow you 10 of them. I was wondering 10 of what?
So my initial thought was he meant people like Akisa because it seems there's an unwritten rule that he can be with Akisa. And even Akisa knows it. It's like a mutual understanding of some sort. So I feel like when she said that, that's what she meant. I don't know if that's what the writers intended though.
Yeah, what did you mean?
I mean, I think you guys are pretty on the money with that. The mistress or
Mm.
a man.
Yeah. And she likes to remind him of his place a lot. That's why I was wondering when he'll snap, really.
And then the part where she said, maybe I should tighten the leash.
Yeah, but then I'm wondering if that's not code for. Did you see how he held her neck? I'm wondering if,
Second, I think I wrote that scene, and there's something about BDSM that
I've been
We are
saying,
right.
I
We
have been
thought
saying
it.
they look like they're into some freaky shit. It's like they have like a dom sub relationship. But then I'm
they do.
wondering, do they interchange?
Sometimes I know, sometimes I know.
Their relationship that's very spicy. Obviously, they both have history of interacting with violence. So
Wow.
Max's past is that he's a boxer,
Ah.
and usually he had to fight like to make a better life for himself. Vivian was in a violent marriage, so violence is something that they know intimately in different ways. And this is also like this is literally like my feeling about the characters. It's not truly how we kind of wrote them, but this is like how I approach them when I'm writing things about them.
Mhm.
So they're very tethered to each other, and there's a shared secret between them. There's a shared, it's almost like a mutually assured distraction. I can't destroy you because it is destroying myself.
Yeah.
Maybe more so for Vivian, but there's something he knows, Max knows he'll gain out of it, and there's a sense of loyalty there. But the power shift thing and the BDSM thing is how it works in the BDSM world is that you surrender as you could either be a dom or a sub, and if you're a dom in your regular life, you probably desire to be a sub because it's tiring to be powerful all the time and you kind of want to surrender to something else. But between these two people, they're always moving between
Mhm.
uh I mean, she's refusing to let him into the business world, but like their life and their business is so intertwined, such that when they see each other and they're playing in that way, or they are interacting in that way, everything has like a I don't know, sexual innuendo sometimes between them. And when they're grabbing each other's, I think he grabs her neck and she grabs his. I can't remember how it plays out, but like, yeah, I've got you, but you've got me. Or that you think you've got me, I've got you too. And so that's the
Mm.
push and pull between the two of them.
Me, I just know that sex is fire. Like even Max knows he cannot get this shit from Vanilla Akisa. This is this one comes with a kick and a spice.
Makes sense because Max with Akisa, he's like soft boy Max.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You can see
yeah.
his tenderness, he's
Then
gentle.
yeah,
She
he's like
doesn't provoke him to
harsh.
anger like Vivian does, you know?
Mm.
Yes,
Yeah, and she needs him. He
for
enjoys
sure.
that. Vivian doesn't super need him. She will, even if she needs him, she'll never say. He will. He knows her, and so he will fulfill the tasks that she needs. Try to get her attention. Try to buy her affection to some extent, not to the grand. I mean, they're married to each other, so there's a tether there, but nothing of like they're things that I want. But with Akisa, even when she says she wants something, it's well within his means of delivery. And even like remember like in the pilot scene when he's the one who grabs her and takes her to a corner and she's very worried about work, but he's like, no, this is what I want. He gets that from her or with
Mm.
her rather. And that's different from him and Vivian. And sometimes maybe men really want that dichotomy where they're like they want to be powerful and also maybe this is why men have side chicks. So they can live there are many people within themselves that they can explore all the different sides of themselves, but women have those sides too.
Yes, so
Yeah,
that's my
your
question.
theory of
Campaigning for polyamory, but anyway, let's continue.
Have you noticed any dynamic between Akisa and Chalo and then Max?
Mm.
Do you see the difference?
That's a good one.
What are you seeing? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
I'm also
I'm
waiting for you guys to talk about this difference.
Me, I'm biased because Chalo is the shit. Because now, look, we know he can be, he's very passionate. So we know he can go there if he needs to.
But I think we will see it unfold in season 2 because right now they're kind of laying the groundwork.
I don't think Max shows the other side of himself to Akisa because I think when he's with her, he wants to be like, no pressure. He's not performing. He's not trying to win a favor of anybody. He's just Max and Akisa. Okay, so then I would say how Max is with Vivian, that's what Akisa and Chalo could have.
Really?
I'm already on
Interesting.
my agenda.
You think so?
Yes, there's a reason why Max vibes with Akisa because he knows he can be himself. He does not have to perform. Charlo does not really care what you think. He has empathy, but he does not use people's opinion of him to like limit who he is. He's just himself, which then means he can be passionate when he needs to be, not needs to be, like when he wants to, like he's free to show his emotion. He's not like Max who's boxed in certain situations. You get? They can be really spicy, Chalo and Akisa, when they want to be, and they can also be soft when they want to be, because no one is boxing them in.
Okay. Interesting. I never thought
They
of
know
it.
each other from when they were young, so they don't really hiding anything. They don't care.
But I also feel like because they know each other from when they were young and 10, 11 years have passed, obviously they have changed. Circumstances have
for
changed them. So I feel like what they used to know then, they might try to recreate it and it might backfire.
No, I don't believe it. Did you see the chemistry only with eyes?
I don't know.
Has anybody come up with like when people, what do they say? When they
Oh,
ship
like a
people?
ship name? Achalo.
Yeah, Achalo.
I already did.
Hashtag Achalo. Okay.
Yes. The moment Chalo finds out, I know he has empathy, but the moment he finds out Anna was lying, bye.
Yeah, that will destroy them.
For sure. Because she's the same person who was saying people like to take advantage of his good heart. She just did.
Damn.
Next. It's kind of like the kind of person where they like take their empathy for naivete. That's why I think a lot of people keep saying to him, grow up. It's like he wants to see the good in people. He wants the best for the community. They think that's dumb because the world is so exploitative.
Yeah, that is true. Anna is in a tough spot though.
I don't know.
I don't know how she's going to dig herself
I
out
tell you how
of
I
that.
like Anna. Anna, are you gonna like build on Grace? I love Grace too. Okay, let me move on.
Wait, have we already covered what he said in the letter? And I don't know who wrote this.
Yeah, Lydia wrote the letter.
Yeah, so I loved how she wrote it because it spoke to Mwalimu being, at the end of his life, changing his mind or rather seeing things from a different perspective. And he knew that the only way to beat the system was through the system. And that the reason why he left the land to his grandson, because society will not value Akisa. You see, she's the custodian of her son's land till he's of age. Like I loved how she wrote it because it really cemented that fact that he had to play that card that way.
That is a very important part. Remember when we were discussing and talking about how if the uncles, Titus and Musa, the fact that Akisa and her mom kind of became close because they knew that these uncles don't value both of them as women and they had to like band together. So it makes sense that he would say that because then that means he understands.
He recognizes.
Yeah, that the women in his life will probably not be respected as much as he is.
Yes.
So he gives the land to his grandson. But also, I have this thought.
You know what? I think I know where you're going. We can think of it that way. That is us
Yes.
thinking from the lens that Mwalimu has empathy and can see how women are viewed. That's what we think. But remember how he treated his daughter and how he didn't give the women in his life any say in what he did with the child. Okay, with that, proceed.
Okay. My thought was different, but okay.
What?
I wanted to kind of borrow what Wanjeri said, that the women are able to have these conversations. They're able to go there and have these conversations and understand the perspective of men. while the men are usually not willing to do that. So I'm thinking in this his letter, him giving the land when the son grows up, when he becomes of age and he says, Grandfather left this for me, will he be able to understand why he did that? Or will he say he left it for me because he values me more than the women in this house?
Mm.
You've probably been part of this conversation in some way. How Indian families manage to retain wealth, unlike many
Mm.
African families. And that
Mm.
is generational wealth. Like you find, Patel, who first shipped from India in the, 1800s, has his name is
Mm.
on a shop, is still on a bookshop, in town or whatever. And the thing is,
Mm.
because they incorporate their children in their business, they incorporate their children in, they educate them
Ah, yeah.
about their life, their culture, like there's a culture they have of incorporating the
Mm.
children in their wealth, in
True.
conversations about wealth, in conversations about business, in a way that,
Mm.
allows the kids, when they come of age or when they're ready to treat the business with the same respect that the previous generation did. I think that misses a lot in African culture, because it's almost like first any conversation about, you inheriting land is you wishing my death. And so people are not having these conversations
Mm.
about, oh, this is why we did this with this land. Like, we really don't have cultural conversations around wealth. And I think it's usually very, because our parents feel guarded, and talking about death, there's a taboo about it in some way. I don't know.
I agree with you completely. Within the Kikuyu culture, there is even like from back in the day, I don't know if it still remains, but there was something about back in the day where you don't even give the accurate number of things. But I think also we were very superstitious then, because you would say, I have 9 daughters, and you really have 10. Weird stuff like that. You don't really give the full sum because you know the evil eye or whatever. But I agree with you that there's a great sense of secrecy. That's why that kind of like wends its way into the show a lot. That there is this way in which people operated that is really to their detriment if they really think about it. If you think about like retaining a legacy, your wife has been by your side this entire time. Why would you make these particular choices? It's a very strange way of looking at retention of wealth. But I think also another thing we have a problem with is that this idea of like if you discuss death, it's like you're almost inviting it. And the problem with that is that then you breed this culture of secrecy, this culture of even like greed. Then when you die, because you never discussed how things should go, you're being disinherited, or your family is being disinherited, or not disinherited, sorry, they're being robbed of their inheritance. It's just very, very messy.
The part where you were talking about, how, not generalizing, but generally
Mm,
Indians are able to keep like wealth in their families. And people say that about Indian Ugandans as well.
mm,
It was very common. We used to hear this growing up. The older I got, the more I kind of read, I started to realize I think we're making an unfair comparison. I don't think usually these populations existed in these places where they were a minority. In a lot of cases, they acted like the silencers for the colonizers or for the
Yeah,
ones
I
in
get you.
power.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, there's a race protectionism component that we're missing.
Uh,
Obviously, they're going to really push for their wealth to stay within themselves. And there's also, I think, they
mm,
don't really include daughters if we think about it. Yes, they're going to marry you to the next rich guy, but they don't
yeah.
really include the daughters.
In
And
their business decisions.
exactly.
oh
And I
yeah,
also
that's
think the part where you
true.
said
Actually,
about,
yeah, that's
death.
very true.
Death being, if I prepare my will, I'm kind of like inviting death. I think we also have to remember the people who colonized us brought religions that make us think of death differently. A lot of people of Asian descent, they don't think of death the way
Yes,
Christian religions.
yes,
You
yes,
see? So that's when I
Very
started to
true.
realize it's
that's
kind of unfair
wicked.
because we're making it seem like black people have a problem. Not really.
Can we
Yeah.
sit there, Kidogo? Because in Hinduism, when you died, you are reincarnated. And
Hmm.
basically, if you are a good person, a bad person, like that affects what you will come back as. But reincarnation is a guarantee. We had a similar thing where
Hmm.
one, you become an ancestor, you become part of the family clan, you are watching over your people, like you had a role. And then secondly, You are not lost because your name was retained. You were born within the family. Like we had
Mm,
such a wonderful relationship with death.
yeah.
I mean, of course, we also like threw the body in the bush and moved on in life. We lost so much. Hmm.
Yeah. We're at the part where Akisa and Chalo, they stop, I think, at some. I mean, there's a lot of greenery. It looks really nice, and they're talking. Chalo mentions having to have made stupid decisions
Yeah.
that made him return to Silanga.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what decisions did he make?
Mind you, he's a criminal. When I think of like the prison system, anyone who threatens the standing, I feel like,
Because of the way he thinks.
yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that makes
Mm.
sense.
I think it's in this moment that they see that they have similarities.
And there's a child to be
Yes,
found.
like even if they think about life differently, because I think at first they were like, they weren't on the same page. But at the end of the day, they
Mm.
realize, yeah, we've all had to make some decisions. I really like that scene where it's like, yeah, we'll find our son.
And then remember the night part, Josiah and his friend, Muli?
Oh, poor babies.
They are so hungry and they go looking for food. Then Akisa and Chalo find them stealing a chicken.
So yeah, in the house he's eating the food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they find out his name is Josiah. I think they start connecting like the dots.
Yeah,
Like
the doors.
maybe this could be him. I think after learning that the child is alive, their minds are really alert.
Mm-hmm. Like, what are the odds? He's named Josiah, her father's middle name.
Yeah. And so they're there talking. Oh, poor child. This is when you realize how much trauma he has gone through in the children's home. That he is hungry, but he'd rather leave the food and run. Because I think he thinks they want to return him.
And the whole time,
Yeah.
they're discussing, I'm thinking that child is right there.
Talk about the ending scene. I'm going to leave that to you.
All right. So, like the last part, she removes her
I
wig.
love that scene. We've
Mhm.
never actually seen her without a wig.
Yeah.
But she had fabric like covering her hair.
Yeah, Shala Kalamba, during the funeral time.
Remember
Mhm.
when Max comes to our house?
Yeah, that's true. Also, was it deliberate for you to make the hair, not you, for the production to make the hair look like it's a wig? Because I was like, I mean, so yes, it's a wig. So the fact that she removed it towards the end, maybe
I
it was
think so.
intentional.
I mean, that hair was clearly a wee girl. Where nobody's trying to
Was
dust the
it?
hair. Probably.
For me, it kind of gave like going back to
To
roots, like literally.
Yeah, that was a very nice scene. And then we see her next when she has removed her hair and she has like a really nice afro out and she's
Yeah.
walking towards her father's grave. And then
It ends with her, I think, coming to terms. I think she's more accepting that this happened to me. It sucks. But I'm going to stay here on my own terms, fight for this land, and look for my child.
yeah, you know what? It makes so much sense because earlier on, she was always in some hurry to get back
Yes.
to Nairobi. Like she would even travel at night. It's like she always wanted to spend the least amount of time as possible. And now I think she was kind of like, so what happens to the business
And
though?
what happens to the mom? Does the mom still move? But I kind of feel like she's gonna stay. The mom
I
might
think
go.
no, I think the mom will
You
stay.
think so?
Because remember when they were trying to take away her things, she said, "I'm not going anywhere."
I think the ending scene that we see, where the land looks like it has been,
Dug out.
my interpretation of it is she's seeing what will happen if she does not stay to fight.
But then my question is, what happens to the agreement she made with Max?
God damn.
But
That's before she knew about her son.
yeah, because I don't think she'll be willing to sell it now that she knows.
Oh, Max is gonna become real cruel now.
And remember, he has borrowed money
Oh,
from Mama
dear Lord.
Akinyi. I am stressed for this money.
You know what? We're going to see some big breaks in some relationships because now she has a son to mind. They left the land to the son. Max doesn't matter anymore. The son takes priority now.
Maybe he will
When
still-
Max learns that the son is,
there's someone else in her life.
yeah, and it's the guy he was with in the cell.
And that's
that-
the end. I think
that-
it ended beautifully.
yeah. And Vivian does not even know the connection between Max, Akisa, Silanga. No.
Yeah.
Oh, a mess.
And also, what is Akisa's life going to look like if she decides to stay?
Ivy is taking up her company. That's going to become like a drug trafficking business.
Oh my
You know,
god.
like a front. Usually those companies like events management in the back. They traffic
Well,
drugs.
These theories are exciting.
So
we should
like,
have you guys in the writers' room.
And then if we get like Max and Vivienne get like a fallout, we can have like
Mm.
our next toxic couple, Ivy and baby boy Kingsley. See that? Love it.
You're sure their Nini, what's their name?
Let's see.
King Ivy. It's perfect.
King Ivy.
King
Yeah,
Ivy.
Ivy King.
Ivy, no, King Ivy sounds much better.
Okay.
Ivy,
King Ivy.
Blue Ivy.
so yeah, we are done.
Thank you so much for having us on. I mean, Oprah has been here before, and so she knew the vibe was correct.
Aw.
So it's really, really, really wonderful how the story clearly resonated with you guys. There were comparisons that made sense from your, lived experience, but also culturally, which is really wonderful. Like you get it from your perspective as Ugandans, particularly. So that was really, really good. And really, thank you so much, time, for just spending time with all 6 episodes. So
Yeah,
I'm very,
man.
very
Thank
grateful.
you.
Thank you for joining us as well. We enjoyed our time. Yeah, the vibe is right. You guys did a great job. Great characters you wrote. Really great storytelling.
Thank you so much.
The 4 of us worked on it, but then we also had 3 directors. We had all our awesome cast of our actors. We had a really, really dedicated crew because we worked long, long hours
We've actually lived with this story
for 5 years.
since
Yeah.
2017. People binged it in like 6 hours. To like hearing you guys first receive the material so well. And yeah, like what Vanjeri said, the way you've even created theories about, this these guys that you made up in our head. It makes it so worth
Yeah.
it. Makes it so worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure.
You've been listening to the Two African Girls Review podcast, where we review black and brown films, TV, and more.
Don't forget to rate and share this podcast. Leave a comment on this episode and let us know what you'd like us to review next. Send us an email at twoafricangirlsreview@gmail.com. Until next time.